You should marry your brother, Elena. God will understand. That was the first message my mother sent me after 12 years of silence. I stared at the screen, not moving. One short sentence, yet it felt heavier than everything I'd tried to bury. At first, I thought it was a cruel joke, maybe a spam text or a prank. But the way she wrote, the neat punctuation, the reverent mention of God, only my mother could make something that insane sound like a sermon. It was raining in Portland that night. The glow from my phone lit up the white walls of my apartment, throwing back a reflection I almost didn't recognize. Older, calmer, but still haunted. I'd built a quiet life, a job, a small place, the same routines repeated like a prayer. I thought I'd escaped. But sometimes the past doesn't need a knock. It only needs a notification sound. My name is Elena Vargas, 29, head nurse at a private hospital. People often say I'm unflappable, calm under pressure, never raising my voice. They think it's a virtue. They don't realize calm can also be armor, something you wear after years of learning that screaming never saves you. When I was 4, my mother remarried an American man named Edward. He had a 17-year-old son named Victor. I still remember the wedding day. The Texas heat pressing down on everything. My mother radiant in white, her laughter bouncing off the church walls. And me, a tiny flower girl no one looked at, watching from the corner. After the wedding, we moved into Edward's house on the outskirts of Houston. It was too big, too quiet, a house that swallowed sound. My mother told me to call Edward Dad and to call Victor your brother. I tried once, but the word got stuck somewhere between my throat and my pride. Victor didn't even look up. When he finally did, it was with the kind of stare that makes you want to shrink just to disappear. When Edward was away on business trips, my mother would smile and say, "Victor, take care of your sister." She said it like a badge of honor, as if she'd built the perfect blended family. Maybe she loved the picture of happiness more than the reality of it. Victor didn't talk much, but his silence filled the whole house. At first, I thought he just didn't like me. Then I realized he liked making me uncomfortable. He'd walk into my room without knocking, stand too close, pick up my things and move them around, just to watch my reaction. When I told my mother, she laughed. "He's just teasing you, honey. Don't be so sensitive." One afternoon when I was in the shower, the door opened. I screamed. The handle turned once more, and I heard the click of the lock from the outside. I told my mother what happened. She slapped me across the face. "Don't lie about your brother," she said. "You'll embarrass him." After that, I stopped telling her anything. Victor found new ways to remind me that he could do whatever he wanted. My underwear disappeared. My cat came home limping. Sometimes I'd wake up at night and feel someone standing beside my bed, close enough for the air to change temperature. I never opened my eyes. I knew it was him. I knew if I looked, the image would never leave me. At 14, I stopped reacting. At 15, I stopped hoping anyone would believe me. By 16, I stopped expecting protection. My mother once told me I'd become cold like a stranger. She didn't understand. Cold was survival. Warmth was what burned. One night, I called Marco, my half-brother from my father's first marriage. I hadn't spoken to him in years, but I knew his number by heart. "Can you come get me?" I asked. He didn't ask why. He just said, "Send me the address." 2 days later, I was standing in the Bogota airport under heavy rain, clutching a small backpack and my passport. When Marco saw me, he wrapped me in his arms and whispered, "You're safe now." For the first time in years, I believed someone. I finished high school, studied nursing, and eventually returned to the US to work. Life became quiet again, steady, measured, predictable. I told myself I'd healed. But healing is tricky. It doesn't mean the wound disappears. It just means you stop touching it until something reminds you it's still there. And that something, for me, was a text from my mother 12 years later, telling me to marry my brother. 3 days after that message, my phone rang again. The screen lit up with one word, mother. I let it ring, once, twice, 12 times. I didn't answer. Each tone felt like a small hammer tapping against a wall I'd spent 12 years building. When the sound finally stopped, silence returned like a sigh I'd been holding for too long. By morning, my screen was flooded with messages. "I'm back in the States. God told me to find you. You'll regret ignoring me." The sentences bled sweetness and menace in equal measure. I read them all, then turned off my phone. A week later, she found me. It was raining, the kind of slow, cold Portland rain that makes the whole city smell like wet stone and regret. I'd just finished a long shift at the hospital when I saw her. She was standing under a flickering streetlight holding a bouquet of red roses wrapped in cheap plastic, the petals soaked and wilting. "You've changed," she said softly, her voice trembling between affection and something darker. "Victor's here too. He wants to see you," I froze. My pulse didn't race. It just stopped. "I don't want to see him," I said quietly. She glanced around, lowering her voice. "Edward's estate is complicated. If you and Victor got married, the inheritance would stay in the family. It's legal, Elena. It's what God would want." I laughed, but it came out dry, like paper tearing. "You're selling me again, aren't you?" Her expression flickered. "Don't talk like that. Everything I do for you." "No," I said, steady now. "You do everything for yourself. Because you can't stand losing control." Her eyes hardened for a moment, then softened again with practiced gentleness. "God sees your heart, Elena. One day you'll understand." I met her gaze, calm as stone. "Then he must have seen what you let him do to me." I walked away. She didn't follow. That night, back in my apartment, the rain hadn't stopped. The air smelled of iron. I was pouring tea when my phone buzzed again. A number I didn't recognize. One message: "I still think about you." Then a photo. Me standing in the hospital parking lot, coffee in hand. Taken from far away. Through a car window. No caption. Just silence. I sat on the floor, back against the wall, phone in my lap. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I just breathed. Slow, steady. Because this wasn't new. This was repetition. The past rehearsing itself like a bad habit. The next morning, I went to hospital security. I told them everything. They wrote it down, nodded, said they'd keep an eye out. I didn't expect them to fix anything. I just needed proof that this was real. 2 days later, he appeared. He was standing near the fence by the parking lot, hands in his pockets, the rain soaking through his white shirt. His hair had gone gray, but the smirk was the same. "You've grown," he said like it was a compliment. "You should leave," I told him. He took one small step closer. "Mom misses you. She cries every night." "She's not crying for me," I said. "She's crying because she can't control me anymore." He chuckled, the sound low, mocking. "You always make things sound ugly." "They were ugly," I said. He tilted his head, eyes narrowing. "You think anyone would believe you now?" "I don't need them to," I replied. Rain started falling harder, drumming between us. He smiled, turned away, and walked off. Slow, deliberate, as if daring me to watch. I did. I stood there until the rain blurred him into nothing, and when he was gone, I realized I wasn't shaking. I wasn't even angry. The fear that had lived inside me for years had finally burned itself out. What was left wasn't pain. It was quiet. And for the first time, silence was on my side. That night, I opened the window and let the rain come in. The air smelled of earth and iron, the same scent I'd grown up with. I didn't know what they'd do next, and for once, I didn't care. If the past wanted to find me again, it would have to face someone who no longer trembled when it knocked. After that night, I stopped answering. Every call, every message, every attempt at contact, ignored. My mother's tone shifted by the day. One moment she pleaded, the next she cursed me. "You're breaking my heart." Victor only wants to talk. Family is forever. I read every word, then deleted them. Silence drove her mad. And that was the point. For people like her, silence isn't absence. It's rebellion. I began documenting everything. Dates, times, screenshots, unknown numbers, license plates of cars parked too long near my building. It became routine, the same way I took vitals at work. Survival written down like data. I told only Marco. He listened quietly and said, "Good, let them expose themselves." Then he connected me with Harold, a family lawyer he trusted. Harold had the calm voice of someone who's seen every kind of human cruelty and learned not to flinch. "Don't engage," he said. "You're doing everything right. Let them talk to the void. It'll echo back." A week later, I came home and found an envelope under my door, no name. Inside was a folded piece of paper with one line written in a shaky hand. "I'm sorry. I just needed to see you." I recognized Victor's handwriting instantly. My hands didn't shake. I folded the paper, placed it in a drawer, and washed my hands until the water turned ice cold. The next morning, the police called. The restraining order had been approved. "If they show up, call us immediately," the officer said. "But don't expect them to stop right away." I thanked him, hung up, and stared at my reflection in the kitchen window. My face looked unfamiliar. Tired, yes, but not broken. For the first time, I saw myself without fear. Days passed. I kept going to work, buying groceries, coming home. The routine became sacred. Every quiet moment, every cup of tea felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I learned something new. Peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the absence of fear when the noise comes. Then Harold called again. "They found something," he said. His tone was careful. "Victor kept records. Photos, videos, notes. Not just of you." I said nothing. "The police are taking it seriously," he continued. "You don't have to do anything right now." I hung up and sat in the dark. No adrenaline, no anger. Just the kind of stillness that comes after a long storm, when the air finally stops vibrating. That night, I opened my notebook and wrote one sentence. "Silence used to be their weapon. Now it's mine." Then I closed the cover, made tea, and let the quiet fill the room like something holy. I understood, finally, that revenge didn't have to look like fire. Sometimes it looked like calm. Sometimes it was just the decision not to bleed anymore for people who'd already drawn enough. I wasn't fighting them. I was outlasting them. One morning, I opened my email and saw a message from Harold. "The case is moving forward. You don't need to testify if you don't want to. The evidence is enough." I read it once, then deleted it. I didn't need to watch the fire to know it was burning. I stepped out onto the balcony. The city was gray, the air sharp with rain. For a long moment, I just stood there breathing. Freedom didn't feel like victory. It felt like stillness. I went back inside, opened the drawer, took out the letter Victor had written. I didn't rip it. I didn't burn it. I folded it smaller, put it inside a box, the same box where I kept things that no longer had the power to hurt me. When I closed the lid, the sound was quiet, final, perfect. I knew they might try again. Maybe another letter, another visit, another lie. But it didn't matter. Because if they came knocking now, they'd find the same silence they once used to break me. Only this time it was stronger than both of them combined. The story made the news eventually. Not because I told it, but because the truth tends to leak through the cracks, no matter how carefully it's buried. One morning, Harold called. "He's been arrested," he said. His voice was steady, but I could hear the exhaustion beneath it. "They found evidence, more than we expected. Other victims. One was a little girl, his cousin's daughter." "She's safe now," I said nothing. The rain outside filled the silence between us. The headlines called it the Miller family scandal. My mother's name appeared everywhere, accused of fraud, of covering up abuse, of draining the trust fund my father had left me. Everything she'd built from lies was collapsing, piece by piece. Harold asked if I wanted to speak out, press charges, claim the inheritance. I told him no. "The truth exists," I said. "It doesn't need me to repeat it. When people asked if I felt happy, I told them I didn't. Justice isn't joy. It's exhaustion. It's the moment you realize the storm is finally over, and all that's left is wreckage and quiet." I didn't want victory. I wanted peace. I quit the hospital for a while. The press had started calling, and the nurses whispered my name like it was a secret they shouldn't know. I packed a few bags, said goodbye to Marco, and left Portland. "Don't disappear," he told me. "Just live differently." I drove until the city disappeared behind me and the air began to smell like salt. I rented a small cottage in a coastal town in Oregon. White walls, wide windows, the sea right outside. The first night there, I left every window open. The wind came in cold and clean. It didn't feel like intrusion. It felt like air. My days became small, ordinary. I woke early, brewed coffee, walked the shore barefoot. Sometimes I helped my old patients over email, giving quiet advice, then deleting the messages. I wrote in a notebook about light, about waves, about silence. Never about them. Not anymore. Weeks later, a letter arrived from Harold. The inheritance was mine. Every cent. I read the first line, folded the paper, and put it in a drawer without opening the attachments. Money couldn't fix the past. It couldn't buy forgiveness, and it couldn't buy quiet. I already had what I needed. At night, I'd sit on the porch, the ocean dark and endless before me. The air smelled of rain and salt. On the table sat a mug of tea and my old notebook, the first page still bearing the line I'd written months ago. Silence used to be their weapon. Now it's mine, I smiled. Maybe I didn't even need the weapon anymore. Sometimes I thought about my mother, not with anger, not even sadness. Just distance. Maybe she's somewhere still justifying herself, still convinced she was right. I don't want to know. Forgiveness isn't about what they deserve. It's about what I'm finally done carrying. As for Victor, I don't speak his name anymore. It used to taste like metal in my mouth. Now it's nothing, just air. He's part of a story that ended the moment I stopped letting it define me. There are mornings when I wake to the sound of gulls outside, open the window, and let the sea breeze wash over me. The air is cold, but it doesn't sting. The silence isn't heavy anymore. It's soft. I used to think freedom meant running away. But now I know it's being able to stand still without fear. It's knowing that the rain outside is just rain, not footsteps coming closer. Tonight, the sea is calm. The horizon glows faintly under the moonlight. I breathe in, slow and deep. For the first time in my life, I feel light. The past has nowhere left to hide inside me. It's gone, dissolved into the sound of the waves. Someone once asked me, if you could go back, what would you do differently? I said nothing, because even if I had the chance, I'd still choose silence. Not because I was scared, but because sometimes silence is the only answer that means you've already won.